Two guys in their early 50s with one dream: to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Andy Walker, it is a very warm welcome to the Missing Links Golf Show for the 100th time.
Correct. I'm feeling very old.
Been feeling very old for quite some time. We haven't needed 100 episodes to get there, but what an achievement. Congratulations, my man. That's
triple figures.
That's amazing.
I mean, we've talked about raising a bat, and I didn't even bring a bat with me. So. Have you ever got a bat?
not in the room, no. I'm going to raise the pen. Raise my note-taking pen.
Well, I got a ball.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. I was thinking about whether or not it would be appropriate to have a glass of champagne whilst we were celebrating this episode, and I've gone with the sparkling water instead. Yeah. Andy Walker, but anyway.
Excellent.
What an achievement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we threw in a bit of champagne, I mean, who knows where it'd stop.
This is the point, isn't it? Could go anywhere, and quite frankly, it might do that anyway. But wow, 100 episodes. A lot has happened in 100 episodes.
There's been some paradigm shifts. I can certainly, from my perspective, there's from where we started out, and a lot of the conversations we've had on the way, a lot of the learning experiences we've had along the way, a few challenges. A few injuries, talking about being old, a few middle-aged white man injuries, but, it's probably not just white man injuries, probably just middle-aged injuries. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I think we've had some great times and some good conversations.
We have. I'll tell you what we've also had is we've had some great guests on the show over the last 100 episodes as well. Guests. And Pilgrims, this is exciting. You're going to hear from some of them tonight as well. Some blasts from the past joining us back on the show to have a bit of a chat about a few of the highlights that have happened over the last 100 episodes. Because really, when planning this one, it was a difficult one in some respects to think of how do we approach acknowledging 100 episodes, because I don't know what the percentage of podcasts is that make it to 100 episodes, but I would hazard a guess it's pretty small.
Well, I think we did talk about at the start there was only a relatively small percentage of podcasts that made it past 10.
Yeah.
So to make it to 100, I mean, look, I think it's something that it's an achievement that we should be proud of, that we've stuck to our guns, and well, I wouldn't say every week we've recorded,
pretty
but
close.
It's been the vast majority.
It's been pretty close. And when you think about it, that's somewhere around, I would imagine, 120 to 130 hours of us talking about our own golf. So for anyone out there that's listened to all of it, congratulations. Well done. We really do appreciate that. That is quite remarkable. Hopefully you've learned something along the way, because I know we have. There's no doubt about that. And it is interesting.
And look, maybe had a few laughs as well. I mean,
I hope so.
I think we don't take ourselves too seriously. And,
no. And that's not going to start soon either.
That sort of comes through, and we just enjoy the laugh and enjoy just not taking not taking the journey too seriously, or the pilgrimage too seriously.
That is true. I think, they talk about this in a work sense. I think the same would be true from a golf perspective. They say take your job seriously, but not yourself. And I think you could apply the same to sport. Like take your golf seriously. You want to improve. You want to do as well as you can. You want to shoot the best numbers that you can. So take your golf seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. So, we're not out there making money out of the game on the PGA Tour or anything like that. We're having a good time. It's meant to be fun. Hopefully it is for the bulk of the time. Yeah, sure, it gets frustrating from time to time, but that's largely, one of the epiphanies we've had, that's largely based on the expectations that you place on yourself before you walk out there. So if you can get that in check, then probably you're going to enjoy it a lot more often.
Yeah, I completely agree. And look, I even think the guys out in the PGA Tour, I don't think they that they take their golf seriously, but I think there are a lot of the times they don't. They don't take themselves that seriously, and they can potentially, frustrating at the time. It can sort of look back and have a bit of a laugh at some of the things that have happened.
For sure.
I mean, Rory maybe not, but most other golfers in the world.
Yeah, I mean, true. But in fairness, you don't see that much blowing up and club throwing and tantrum throwing in the professional ranks compared to what you do on a weekend at a local golf course.
No.
Tyrrell Hatton aside.
But again, I don't think Tyrrell Hatton takes himself too seriously. No. It's very in the moment, and he lives in the moment and has wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think that's a really good thing for the game.
Yeah.
I think it would be quite boring if every single golfer would just sort of stone-faced walk down the fairway, hit their shot, and if they got a putt, stone-faced. If they missed a putt, stone-faced, and walk to the next tee and tee it off again. And you just don't see that with Tyrrell Hatton. He's either got a really big smile on his face or he's blowing up.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Nevertheless, we do have a plan for this episode, Pilgrim, so we're not going to just ramble about random topics too much. There is a little bit of structure. What we wanted to do, so Andy Walker and I had a chat about this during the week, a couple of chats, in fact, and what we thought was over 100 episodes, we have learned so much about ourselves and about the game, approach to the game, all sorts of aspects. And we kind of wanted to pick, we haven't necessarily targeted a top 5, but it almost ends up there.
Yeah.
And we kind of wanted to pick a couple of key topics of some of the things that have really changed our way of thinking about golf and thinking about ourselves playing golf, and have a chat about those. And it's revisiting some of the moments that we've had some really interesting guests on the show that have said some amazing things. So we are going to just play a couple of snippets as we go of some of those interviews and unpack that a little bit with the understanding that now we've got with 2020 hindsight that we maybe didn't when we were talking to some of those guests. So Andy Walker, what do you reckon? Shall we get into it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we really need to go back to the beginning.
We do
of our pilgrimage, and I know our first guest was a very, very good long-time friend of mine, David McClelland, and he had and look, he's been a mentor of mine. He's been a great friend of mine. Very old school, very traditional, and also has quite an old school view of the game.
You might say he's a man of wisdom.
He is.
So he did leave us with one particular thought, Pilgrims, and we're going to play that right now, and we're going to hear what the great man Dave McClelland had to say. So here we go.
Short game, short game, short game, short game. It's as simple as that.
Apparently it is.
Man of many words, David McClelland, and that's, look, I mean, he grew up in a world where that was it. It was short game. You practice your short game, you practice your putting, and he's always been a genius around the greens. I mean, ball striking wise, he can get it around the course. However, he could get up and down out of a ball washer. I swear some of the areas that I've seen him make a par from, I just sit there and shake my head like and he does it time and time and time again. And look, he's been playing the senior amateur tour for a number of years now, probably over 10 years. And that's the way he goes about his game and has always done exactly that. So it works for him.
Apparently it does. You're right in saying that it's a bit of an old school thought about the game and how it works. And we did have a bit of a discussion with Dave during that interview. That was actually back in episode number 4. That was right back at the very beginning. Yes. He was our very first guest on the show. And I think in fairness, he makes a good point. But there's also a counterpoint to this argument, which was one that we heard in episode number 48, where we had author and mental coach to the PGA Tour, John Sherman. who's an incredible thinker on the game, and he joined us and he gave a bit of a counter view on this point. So I want to play this to you now, Andy Walker, and just get your thoughts on exactly where you sit between these two perspectives. So have a listen to this one.
You know, the people who always tell golfers it's all about your short game, it's usually playing professionals who already have great long games. And they're like, oh, I just spend all my time working on my wedges and my putter. I'm like, great. That's because you also hit your driver 300 yards pretty straight and flush your irons. So I think it's a little disingenuous to tell other golfers that they should focus only on the short game to lower their scores when they're topping it off the tee and chunking irons. You just can't score that way. And my good friend Mark Brody, who I think the entire golf world should be grateful to for exploring this and his research, showed that, yeah, short game's important, but across all levels, 2/3 of scoring differential is accounted for by your tee game and your approach play. More specifically, approach play is where scoring really occurs, not with wedge shots. That's where players separate the most. So I would tell people that if you want to unlock your highest level of golf, yeah, you need to drive it well. What I mean by driving it well, I don't think you need to hit it 280. I think you need to stand over your driver and keep it in a 60 to 70 yard window and hit it in front of you somewhere so that you have more clear shots to the green. They don't have to all be in the fairway, but keep the ball in play and hit at a reasonable distance. And with your iron play, like, yeah, hitting more greens in regulation, that is how you lower your scores dramatically. So again, as you alluded to, everyone's different. So some people do have decent long games, and a lot of their gains can be made with cleaning up their wedges around the green and reducing three putts. That might be the answer for you. You don't know until you kind of track your stats. But for the most part, you can't get too good at hitting your driver well and your irons well. Like that has been the unlock for me. Getting to a plus handicap. If I drive the ball well and hit my irons well,
you're going to play well.
I'm going to play well. Versus if I don't drive it well and I put myself in the trees or in recovery situations, I just can't make up with that with my wedges too much. It puts way too much pressure on them. So the stats back it up. And of course, it takes time and effort to get there. But if you want to make golf easier for yourself, then yeah, the long game is going to move you forward the most. And I'm not saying to ignore wedges and putting. I just think at some point, most people get tapped out. So if you could stand over a wedge shot and feel good about getting it on the green, and you could reduce a lot of your three putts, you've solved a big problem in scoring. You're not going to make as many doubles. And if you keep working on those parts of the game at the expense of your long game, I think the expected return on scoring starts to get tapped out. Versus, again, you cannot get too good at driving the ball or hitting your irons well. Like, I think, especially for a tournament golfer, driver's the most important club in the bag. And I'm not saying that just because I want everyone to bash their driver like 330 yards like touring pros, but it's even more important for the average golfer because they just don't hit their irons as well. So you have to advance the ball as far as you can off the tee because you don't want to give yourself a bunch of long iron shots and recovery situations. You just can't recover from those enough.
Well, that's definitely a counter view, Andy Walker.
It is, and it is. It's coming from two very different points of view. One is an old school traditional point of view, and the other is a more modern view where it's data driven and stats driven. And John mentioned Mark Brody, who's done an enormous, I think, service to the game through bringing strokes gained into the world of golf, and that just if you look at strokes gained and you look at the data that Mark Brody presents, there's really no argument that ball striking is one of the keys to consistent performance and high level performance. And that's something that I always worked on as a young bloke. I spent so many hours on the driving range working on my ball striking, and that was one of the things that, if you talk to Scotty Fisher and my good mate Scotty Fisher, we had on episode 15. He played on the tour for a couple of years through Oceania and Australia, and he'll tell you that I was always known for my ball striking because that's what I love to do, and that's what I felt was my strength and how I would play my best. Didn't have the stats to back it up, but that was always my perspective. And yeah, I had David as an influence, but I don't know, intuitively, I always gravitated towards ball striking and hitting balls rather than short game. And that may have been influenced a lot by Greg Norman. I remember one of the first videos I watched of Greg Norman, instructional videos, was him talking about the old school viewpoint of, drive for show and putt for dough, whereas he had a very different perspective in that if you drive the ball well, you set up your position on the hole to be able to attack the golf course and score really well. And that really resonated with me at the time. So yeah, but it's complete opposite ends of the spectrum with where David's coming from and where John Sherman's coming from.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that either of them are wrong either. They're different approaches, and they're both. And I think John in that interview went further and was also talking about the importance of the short game. That, and I think as we've talked before, it's all in balance and you can't have one without the other. And the better you get, in fact, as he kind of alluded to there, once your long game's already pretty reliable and in good shape, that's when that short game point becomes more and more important. One of the things he said, which I thought was really interesting, he said, according to the stats, 2/3 of scoring differential comes from the tee ball and approach play.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah,
that's an enormous part of the game. The other thing that I think is interesting, and he mentioned Mark Brody, and you talked a bit about that as well, is how few people actually understand the concept of how the strokes gain metric works. Right. So I was on just having a bit of a read of the ShotScope Facebook page, because obviously I'm a ShotScope user. And there was a guy on there who was a 15 handicapper, and he was putting a question out to the community saying, I'm averaging, not averaging, last round I had 32 putts. And the strokes gain data is telling me that I've lost 2 shots putting against the benchmark of other 15 handicappers. And he was blowing up saying, you can't tell me that 15 handicappers average 30 putts per round. And a lot of people were piling in on this saying, that's right, like the putting stats are useless, it's all incorrect, it's rubbish, you can't believe a word of it, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually down the comments, someone said, it's got nothing to do with that. Were all of your 32 putts from within 6 feet? How many greens did you hit in regulation? And as it turned out in that thread, then he ended up admitting to he'd hit none of the greens in regulation and was chipping on every green and still had 32 putts. And that is the story, because putts of different length carry different weighting. So it's easy to misconstrue.
Proximity to the hole.
Correct. It's easy to misconstrue the stats, but once you actually dig into it, it's a really, really good stat. And I think, and I do think that genuine scientific-based data has been one of the biggest changes in golf probably in the obviously there's the technology side with equipment, but in terms of the players and understanding, been one of the biggest changes in people's approach to golf. And now that that's available to the general public, not just tour players, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a much better understanding of your game. And I think that's something I know personally, and I think you're probably in the same boat, Andy Walker, but getting a better understanding of our actual strengths and weaknesses rather than just what we think has been one of the biggest differences and one of the biggest lessons we've learned.
Yeah, 100%. And certainly from my own experience with strokes gained, and I mean, I use the Arcos system in that I've always, because I always practiced my ball striking, and that's what I was known for. So I guess I took on that self-image of being a good ball striker. When I first started using Arcos, it showed a very different dynamic of my game, in that I was actually, from a strokes game perspective against a scratch handicapper, I was better with short game and putting than I was off the tee and with my approach play. And I was really shocked by that. I was just like, no, that can't be right. Like, I've always been a great ball striker, but not necessarily when you're looking at it from a strokes gain perspective.
Yeah. And similarly, I always thought that I was a pretty poor putter. The stats did not suggest that. And then having that knowledge fills you with a little bit more confidence, and putting is so much about confidence that's actually helped that side of the game as well. So it's super interesting really just to understand things a lot more clearly and with evidence to support it. So yeah, as I say, I think that's one of the biggest changes that we've seen as regular weekend golfers in the game. But you know what else? Yeah. You know what else is a big change? A little bit of a change of pace. What else is a big change has been the understanding of the mental side of the game.
Yeah.
And we have had some amazing guests that have come and spoken to us about the mental side of the game, starting, way back with Neil Smith, who was in, I think,
it was about episode 10, I think Neil Smith
12,
was.
maybe something like that. Yeah, 10 or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really the first foray that we had into sort of understanding a little bit about the mental game. And, what was it that he was saying, the outside to in or inside to out or something along those lines was his explanation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was really interesting to me because I've always seen myself as more of an inside out person. I've always been, locked into what I'm doing within and trying to feel what I'm doing within. Like target golf for me, I've never really focused too much on target when I'm locked in on the ball and I mean, with my pre-shot routine, I line the target up with a spot on the ground or something similar, maybe 3 or 4 feet out from the ball. But once I've done that, once I've got my target alignment, it's all within. It's all about me feeling, whether it be a couple of key positions I want to be in or a swing feel that I've gone to in recent times. It's always come from within. So I really gravitated and understood the inside out perspective that Neil spoke about, whereas yourself, I think you gravitated more to the outside in.
Yeah, that's right. And, sort of having that concept of where I wanted the ball to go and to end up and the shot shape and the flight, much more so than the mechanics and, sort of the movements that I wanted to make. I would almost kind of have that picture and then let the body self-organize to try and make that come true. But the other thing with it as well, which is interesting, is that I also was much more aware of what was happening around me on the golf course, and that, could lead to becoming distracted a little bit more easily or, kind of, feeling kind of the self-consciousness about the pace of play in your group. And this was always what got me. Like I would always be super vigilant about where we were in relation to the group in front and the group behind. And I would have playing partners that would just appear to be completely oblivious to this, which I couldn't understand. But, obviously we're just approaching the game completely differently. But I think it's fair to say that like Neil's conversation was really enlightening, but it wasn't until we got the framework around this that we really understood what that was all about, which was the chat we had with John Weir with Mental Golf Type.
Yeah. And I came across Mental Golf Type, I think it was pretty early in 2024, and it was something that really struck a chord with me pretty early. And I reached out to John to get him on the show, and he was kind and gracious enough to come on the show to explain. Mental Golf Type has a number of facets, but I think for both of us, the introvert extrovert side of our mental golf type was really interesting.
Yeah, it was. So I've got that little snip, which we're going to play right now, of how John explained the difference between the two. I think he'll do a better job than either of us could ever do. So
Absolutely.
Let's go to that now.
Something, guys, is something as simple as this. So this is our energy management source. And there are two ways that we manage our mental energy. We could be extroverted and we can be introverted, and we do both. So everybody does all things. Extroverts are designed to put their energy out to the world, to talk, to engage, to put their energy out. And as they direct their energy outward, they actually get refueled. So, Steve, it's probably a lot easier for you to be engaging all day, and that keeps your energy level high than sitting and doing your taxes by yourself in front of your computer.
100%.
Where that might not bother Andy so much. He might not want to have to deal with a lot of the people around and would rather have private time to sit and do his tasks and kind of do that. He's going to stay a little bit more energized through that day.
Yeah, 100%.
Are designed to conserve their energy. So we see a different expression of that. They come across more reserved, more cool. Sometimes they're not as talkative because, again, they're conserving energy. As they conserve energy, they get recharged. As they interact through the day, put energy outward, it's draining. And they're going to need some downtime or alone time to rebuild that energy. So two classic examples on the golf course. We got Tiger, the introvert, and we got extroverted Phil Mickelson, right? Two wildly successful players, totally different management strategies when it comes to their energy.
One left-hander and one right-hander in that as well. I like that, John. Nicely done.
Right. Actually, it's quite funny. When you see Phil playing good, what do you see? Probably what's similar to what Steve's doing, talking out shots. He's engaging with his playing partners. You see Phil, he's waving at the gallery, walking with a bit of swagger. I mean, even with his body language, he's expressing himself outwardly. And he's getting re-energized and charged by this, and he's going to be playing great. Predictably, though, when he starts getting poor or things start going south, you'll see that energy shift. He'll go from being extroverted and talkative and engaging to becoming introverted. He's going to get quiet. You're going to see his head come down. His inner world is going to be just kind of like this little frame around him. And he's going to get caught in his head now, stewing about what happened or what's going to happen. And as a result,
and that, John, sorry to jump in, but that, when I read the personality profile, and that was the descriptor of what I do when I'm playing poorly, which is written by you, we've never met, and it was like you were piercing into my soul, right? Because that is exactly what happens. Still true.
It is.
Still true to this day. It's remarkable. And it's so good going back to listen to some of that stuff as well, because what was interesting, it's not just the bit where you get your energy from and, wanting to interact with other people and, have a chat around the course and all those things that John talked about there. But it's very much what happens when things are going bad and as the stress rises, things really go opposite and not in a good way. And that's when you really start to get in your own head and get in your own way. So, I thought that was really interesting.
And that for me as well, being a more introvert personality, for me, getting in my own head and having my own space and not actually engaging that much, being more self-driven and self-focused in around that's 100% what I do. And I found, and one of the things that John said was that what I should be doing is, I can have a chat to my playing partners as I've just teed off and I'm walking up the fairway a little bit, but as I get closer to the ball, just to deviate away a little bit, just so I can start that process of getting into my own head and being a bit more sort of self-focused, because that's what gives me energy, and my introvert type, that's where what drives me and where I'm best to perform.
Look, it's really worthwhile doing. I think doing the quiz with the mental golf type, which is free to do the analysis. You don't have to purchase a course to do that. You can just go on and do that, and you will get a huge amount of information and insight about yourself and how you approach the game. The link is in the show notes as well, that you can jump on there and go to the Mental Golf Type website and do that quiz and get a whole lot of information, because I even found just gaining that understanding made a massive difference in being able then to manage certain situations in future rounds. Obviously, we went a little bit more deeply into the program as well in certain aspects, and gained another level of understanding again. But even just the free level, if for nothing else, just to get that personal understanding about yourself, that awareness, I think is just super valuable and well worth it.
Yeah. And that was sort of the first, I guess, touch point that I also had with meditation and a guided hypnotherapy session.
Yeah.
Because John actually does have that in Mental Golf Type. And I know that when we first started that, and certainly for the first, I don't know how many months it was, we both really struggled with the meditation and with the breath work and with that mindfulness habit, especially, I guess, allocating the time to sit down and you sort of feel like you're doing nothing. I think we were both so focused on doing stuff that to actually sit down and take time out for us, A, it felt very self-indulgent, but B, I think we were both going, well, no, I'd prefer to be doing, like,
totally.
There's so much else that we've got going on in our lives. I'd prefer to be out doing something else.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, who's got the time? But what's been interesting as well over the time has been getting feedback from various people who have listened to those episodes and have had very similar views on meditation and the value of meditation and their approach to meditation, and in some respects have said things like that, like, the two of you were, I thought, very respectful with your comments about meditation. I would not have been so, so understanding. But then at the same time, there's been a few other quiet comments from some of the pilgrims that have really reinforced the understanding and shown us that there are some people out there that actually do put it to really good use. And in fairness, so many of the top performers and so many high-level athletes and successful people in all walks of life actually do use it to their advantage.
Well, Tiger was one who
absolutely,
certainly in the early part of his career used hypnotherapy a lot and never really told anyone about it until much later in his career. But I've heard him talk about the hypnotherapy, and he credits that a lot with the high level of performance that he had at the time.
Yeah. There's no question that there is a lot of value in it. I think the other one, and you talked about this a little bit too, is the breathing exercises and using breath work to regulate, to bring yourself back to equilibrium during some of those tough times. And, where we talked before about when you notice that your behavior shifts with your mental golf type and personality indicators, when you're noticing that because you understand it, that's when you can actually put those things in play. But before having that understanding, things happen to you rather than you piloting your way around the golf course. So, that level of understanding is definitely important.
And certainly for me, there's probably been two other key educators that we've listened to or been in contact with that have been fairly critical in that journey. And first is Raymond Pryor in Golf Beneath the Surface. He was
future guest of the show.
Absolutely. His book and his podcast, we've both now listened to the podcast a number of times, and I've been through his book, and he talks a lot about the breath work and the mindfulness to a point where I understood the value of it. But then earlier in the year, I was working a bit with Paul Salter, and Paul actually he taught me the practical ways of going about breath work and hypnotherapy and mindfulness. So having the understanding, the technical understanding from Golf Beneath the Surface, and then having the practical knowledge from Paul, I now integrate that into most days. And in the morning, I'll do a strength and conditioning workout, and then I'll do somewhere between 6 and 10 minutes of breath work after it, as part of my recovery after the strength and conditioning session. And that's been gold for me, not only for my focus on the golf course, but my focus and then how it sets my mental framework up for the day.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Really interesting. So look, Pilgrims, definitely a lot in there. We would recommend checking out Mental Golf Type website without a doubt. Do the quiz. Another one that's probably worth checking out as well is there is a Mental Golf Type or a mental golf profile that you can do on Josh Nichols' website as well, and details on that are also in the show notes. So that's a little bit slightly different tilt, but we'll give you some similar information, which is really cool. And
I also think go and check out the Golf Beneath the Surface, whether
buy the book
or
buy the book. Honestly, buy the book.
Brilliant information.
Yeah. Can't speak highly enough of that. As I say, future guest of the show, Mark Brody as well, potentially future guest of the show as well, to talk about strokes gain. And we've got to write these down, Andy Walker. We've got to send some invitations out.
We've got plenty of ideas still, Pilgrims, to bring you guests, but we just need to...
Over the next 100.
Yeah.
So speaking of other guests, and another one who I think has absolutely moved the needle in people's understanding, golfers' understanding of the game, was someone that joined us in episode 32. And this was someone that we'd been chasing for a while. Really, really interesting thinker on the game, which was Sasho McKenzie, who was the inventor of the stack system that helped Matt Fitzpatrick gain the distance to win a US Open, amongst then, beyond that, many, many other golfers, both professional and amateur. Sasho's an incredible thinker on the game. It was a really interesting conversation, but there's one particular element that we want to hone in on, Andy Walker, in this, which is the ball rollback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Sasha's going to explain a lot better than what I can, surprisingly. But this was one thing, because I was always very much against. I was for the ball rollback, because I thought that the distance that tour pros especially and the modern player was hitting the ball was taking away from the game, and the whole sort of bomb and gouge type of golf that certainly on the PGA Tour is very prevalent, and I'm very much in the Paul McGinley was in the Paul McGinley camp of the fact that there's a lot of really good or great golf courses out there that are effectively obsolete because of just how far golfers hit it. But Sasha McKenzie, and in our conversation, gave me a little bit of a different perspective to think about. He
sure did. So let's have a listen to that now. It's a little bit of a longer clip, but definitely worth revisiting, because there is a whole lot of wisdom in here that you probably won't hear in many other channels. So we'll hand over to Sasha.
What people are missing is that right now, what's controlling distance, limiting distance on the PGA Tour, is not clubhead speed. I spoke about it at the start of the episode, but right now the average on the PGA Tour is 115. People can swing it. There's people out there that can swing at 160, a reasonable amount of them. That's a big room. That's a lot of room for an elite group of golfers. We just have to find 200 golfers ish who can swing on average 130 miles an hour, knowing that there are hundreds and hundreds of people that can swing over 130, right? So, they slow the ball back, and I think the testing now is, marginally going to slow the ball down. They're not making a big enough leap. You want to roll the ball back and fix problems, you probably have to slow it down by like 50 yards. Not by the 10 or 20 yards that they're going to slow it down by, right? You'd have to slow it down so much that even if the average tour player is out there playing at 130 miles an hour, that the ball is only going to go 100 or 300 yards. So this is what will happen. And it was on display at the Players this year. Okay, what's limiting the current driving distance on tour is how far the ball goes in conjunction with course design. So if you look at hole 18, there were very few players the elite players who hit driver. Fitzpatrick hit driver. Schauffele hit a 3-wood. Scheffler hit a 3-wood. I think some of them even hit like 4 irons or hybrids, right? There was another hole 16, I believe, where Schauffele didn't hit driver. Brian Harman hit driver. Matt Fitzpatrick hit driver. So if you slow the ball down, right, these guys that are hitting hybrids and 3-woods to 300 yards now are just going to grab their driver, and they're just going to swing faster. The dispersion increases not because of club head speed primarily. Dispersion increases because of how far the ball goes. So at around 330 yards, when a ball, because it follows a cone, that's kind of where strokes gain starts to diminish because you start missing too many fairways. If you roll the ball back, so let's say Schauffele right now is hitting his driver on a hole 330 yards, and you roll the ball back, so now he's hitting his driver 310 yards, then he'll just increase his club head speed, which he can do. So now he's going 130 yards again, or go from 3-wood to driver. Hole 18 at TPC, if you roll the ball back, he goes, okay, I'll just hit driver because it's now going to go the same distance as his 3-wood. But Brian Harman, who hit his driver everywhere, he's not in the PGA Tour anymore. So there's this, we want to see the shot shaping. I remember Rory hit like a 4-iron into a hole last year, and they're like, yeah, that's what we want to see, the shot shaping. That's what you might see, but it's only going to be from guys who can swing the club at 130 miles an hour. That's because they're just the guys have the ability to do that and be straight. Tony Finau is an excellent example of someone last year. He had a club head speed in the high teens, 118, 119. Do you know what his club head speed is this year? 124. That's what it was at the PGA overnight.
Whoa.
Overnight, because he had the potential. Last year, and over the last 3 or 4 years, you could see he'd post these videos where he could get the club head up to 140 miles an hour. So he's playing at 118, 119 because that's, like he's hitting fairways. That was a bit slow for him, but he can instantaneously go, right, I'm going to start playing at 124. And there's a lot of guys where if you slow the ball down, right, and they kept playing at their current club head speed, they'd start to hit more fairways, right? But they would go shorter. So then to re-optimize their strokes gain, they just swing harder, right? Rory increases club head speed. Xander increases club head speed. They're not getting any less accurate. Xander got faster and hitting more fairways. If you slowed the ball down, instead of swinging at 124, he'd probably train and improve and swing at 128. So the ball roll back, until you roll it back to a point where if guys are swinging at 130, it's only going 300 yards, it's not going to have the intended effect. All it's going to do is weed out players who can't swing crazy fast.
That is a fascinating perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've listened to a number of commentators now on the ball rollback. And most of the people who are in favor of the ball rollback want a more diverse game and a more diverse way of playing the game. But according to what Sasha is saying is that if you roll the ball back, it's actually going to drive more towards those golfers that have a very high, very fast swing speed, which I think is a really interesting perspective because what he was saying is that dispersion isn't really impacted by swing speed. It's more around distance and that cone around distance. And when you get to that 330 yards, that's when you really start to see the impact of that dispersion with the high swing speed. So I just find that to be a really interesting discussion, and it just adds another dynamic to the mix of what we want out of the game.
It really does, and I thought I hadn't thought about that from the perspective of unintended consequences, which is basically what Sasha is talking about, is that if you're wanting to prevent these guys from overpowering golf courses and winning tournaments just because they can flog the ball such an incredibly long distance, so you're rolling that back, But so much of the argument has forgotten to talk about what happens at the other end of the spectrum, which is the guys who at the moment can still compete, but once you roll them back, they can't compete and they will disappear. And that was interesting. And it was also interesting, the example that he used, which was in this instance Brian Harmon, because he was talking about the Players' Championship from that would have been 2024. And it's true, you know, like Harmon is not a long hitter, but also at the same time he'd recently just won an Open Championship and therefore proved that he could compete on that stage. But if the ball rollback happens, then he's one of those people that actually no longer can compete and he falls off the bottom end of the PGA Tour, which, you know, I don't think that's the consequence that the proponents of the rollback are looking at. Interestingly, though, there's probably quite a few people that watch golf on TV that wouldn't be sorry to see him go with the amount of time it takes him to hit a shot, but that's a different argument altogether. Speed of play, not distance. But it was a really, really interesting perspective to look at, to go, you know, these guys, the long hitters, they can hit it further than they do already anyway. Why don't they? There isn't any more advantage to doing that.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, I think then it brings back the argument of, okay, well, how does course design impact how a golfer is going to play the course rather than how far they hit it? So if you're putting bunkers and rough and longer rough in strategic places,
I think that's the key.
Rather than say, you know, and you talk about 300 yards. So putting longer rough or fairway bunkers at sort of 330 yards and then putting a more strategic landing spot at 300 yards, you've still got the Brian Harmons of the world that are able to hit driver 300 yards. So they've got it in play. But then you've got, you know, the Rorys and the Brysons and these guys who've then got to weigh up, okay, well, is it worth bombing it down there 330, 340 yards when I've got this very, very thick rough to be able to contend with if I miss? And potentially, you know, that could be a really good way to be able to deal with the increasing swing speeds, because another point that and commentator that I've listened to is Mike Carroll from Fit for Golf, and he talks about the strength training that's coming through especially the US college system at the moment, and how heavier weights and less reps are actually so building that muscle mass is actually helping the fast twitch muscle fibers create more swing speed. So, you know, you're going to get guys and a lot of guys come through and out of the US college system. They're going to have that 130 swing speed that Sasha was talking about. So then how do you, through course design, how do you combat that? Because very soon, as Sasha said, the likes of the Brian Harmons, who have got the average 115 swing speed at the moment, they're going to be obsolete.
Interesting debate. No doubt it will continue. I think the rollback is happening anyway, so we're going to see if all of those predictions come true, which if they do, we told you so. You're welcome.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good. Andy Walker, there's some of the big lessons that I think that we learned about the game throughout the process. Probably one other perspective we haven't really touched on, and that was maybe some of the lessons that we learned about ourselves.
Yeah. And look, I think one of the reasons why we started this podcast and a lot of the conversations we had in the 6 to 12 months before jumping on the mics was, how do we fit golf in between, you know, busy family lives, busy working lives, you know, being able to fit golf in somewhere, and the challenge of juggling all these different priorities. And I mean, golf always seemed, and we talked about it a lot, that golf always seemed to be the last rung of the ladder. When, if we had a game of golf that we had planned and something came up, golf would be the first thing that would be pushed to the side.
The first casualty.
So we started this podcast to try and turn that around and try and keep ourselves accountable and keep ourselves on the pilgrimage of this golf improvement journey that we both felt as though was very worthwhile in our lives, and we felt as though there was a lot of people out there that were in the same struggle.
Yeah, yeah. We didn't necessarily expect that we would come across quite so many people that were facing the same struggle, but it has absolutely been the case. And one of those was a guy who I mentioned very briefly earlier, Josh Nichols from the Mental Golf Show, who came on our show as a guest, and then we ended up collaborating to do a piece where we went on his show, and vice versa, where it was an amazing conversation that actually probably ended up as much of a group therapy session as it did a podcast interview, really talking about this particular thing. So to set the scene, I guess Josh had not long before become a dad, and was really feeling the pressure of family, parenthood, work, golf, as someone who'd been the number 2 ranked amateur golfer, certainly in the US. I think globally, actually, he was.
Yeah, globally he was. And he did come runner-up in the US Mid-Am Championship. So he missed out on a Masters invite by one game of golf, basically. And that was the whole thing, that he felt as though he could reclaim, I guess, that form to be able to win the US Mid-Am and get that invitation to the Masters. Yeah.
So what I find is remarkable that a guy of this caliber, not only as a golfer but also as a mental golf coach, when wading through some of these difficulties, and in his words, kind of grieving the loss of the golfer that he was when confronted with the challenges of adult life, found his way to us for advice.
Exactly.
That's pretty frightening. But anyway, it was one almighty conversation, and there's a bit that we do want to recap on because it's actually really, really important, and I think catches a lot of the essence of this show, as much as the struggles that Josh was going through at the time. So let's just go to that one right now.
Just purely practically speaking, just nuts and bolts. Steve, how much time do you get to, or do you set aside for yourself a week to do golf related things?
It's boom and bust. I might have times where I can spend like a few hours at a time, and then I might go for a week where I actually don't really have any time, and I've got to squeeze things in, and then I'll forever juggling the calendar to go, when am I going to have a weekend when I can squeeze a competitive round in? And then something comes up and that drops off, and then that frustration builds. I know what you're talking about. But it's trying to, and the way I've dealt with it, I think, is to understand that golf is a priority for me in my life, for all the good things that it delivers, health, mental health, be able to be home, be present, and all the rest of it. My kids are a priority for me in my life. My wife is a priority for me in my life, and they all have to be prioritized. And that can feel like it can compete, but I don't look at it like that. I'm looking at it as being fortunate enough to have a number of priorities that I absolutely want to try and do the best that I can by, without letting any of them down, which is very hard.
Yeah.
Interesting that I did not mention work as a priority, but maybe we all learned something there.
Podcasting is a priority, though.
Oh yeah,
podcasting.
Yeah, you didn't mention podcasting. That's a given. I think that's just a given.
Yeah. So I think for me that's the thing. It's about trying to do the best you can by all of those elements and all of the opportunities and the times that you can, and finding the ways to maximize them to the best of your ability, rather than feeling like you got to give one up for the other.
Yeah, that's I love they're not competing hobbies. You get to have multiple things that you love to do. So
yeah,
that's
how cool is that?
That's very cool. If back when I was only a golfer, I only had one thing that I liked to do, and I really, really liked to do it. But my life was probably void of a lot of joy and a lot of real satisfaction and meaning, Andy, to use your word. So that's I need to chew on that one. That's a reframe from the way I think about it. As of now, I feel like it's all the things in my life are competing against each other, right? I have to shove work away, like force it away so that I can finally play golf or finally spend time with my son or wife, or do nothing, right? I never just get to do nothing. I don't know if any of us three get to do nothing.
Yeah.
But it feels like a competition. That's absolutely how it feels to me right now. And
so with that though, then whenever you're with any one of those parts of your life, you know, you might be with your partner, you might be with your child, you might be with your golf, you're never fully with them because there's always the feeling of the other ones that you're letting down. All right, I'm living this all the time because of the being stretched between two places.
Yep.
And that's where getting into a situation where I can appreciate that I can only be in one place at one time, like physically.
Right.
And then understanding then, well, all right, maybe mentally I should only be in one place at one time. Because if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing justice to the place that I am. Yeah. I feel like it was even your own words that might have been get your head where your feet are.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. And it's so true. You know, and if you can commit yourself fully and 100% wherever you are and whatever you're doing without the worry of I'm letting someone else down, because if that's the case, then go and be there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing a disservice, or I do a disservice. We talk about this all the time. Because all day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., I'm talking to clients about golf, right? I'm mental coaching, golf psychology coaching clients, and I give my best to them. And then my wife and son get my leftovers, right? They get they get the worst of me because I'm worn out. I've given my best all day. Now I don't have anything left. And that probably comes a little bit from that competition mentality, or the mental time travel mentality, or my head isn't where my feet are. When I'm with my wife and son, I'm not at work anymore, right? Now I'm here. If I'm not giving them my best, then probably my mind is somewhere else, or my mind wishes I was doing nothing, or my mind wishes I was finally just getting to hit a golf ball or something. So if I would be able to reframe that and say, one, I get to be here, right? As I go to a counselor and I talk about my wife won't let me go play golf. And he said, wow, what a shame. Your wife wants to be with you. You have a beautiful woman that wants to spend time with you. You poor guy. Yeah. So if I was just able to kind of realize, like kind of step back and say, okay, this isn't a have to, this is a get to, and I'm going to choose to be here, then it would probably change how much juice I can wring out of what I'm doing right now. And then when I go play golf, I'm there, right? I'm not, it's not like I feel guilty because I shoved everything else out of the way and I'm finally getting to play golf. It's a more of a rich experience because now I'm here and I'm choosing to be here.
Heavy.
Yeah. And that was a powerful conversation that we had with Josh. And I think there's so much wisdom in just that little piece of, and it's just being present where you are and whatever you're doing. Just be 100% present, 100% focused in what you're doing. So then when you go and do another one of your activities that you've chosen to do, you can be 100% focused and present in that activity as well. And I think that's a really powerful way to go about life.
It's so hard with all of the particularly probably more so now when we're also contactable and easily distracted with, with phones and social media and all of the, all the ways that you can not be right where you should be all the time, like the concept of phubbing, which you hear with, people that are, might be sitting there supposedly talking to someone else, but they're looking at their phone and scrolling through Instagram reels and various other things, or listening to amazing podcasts. So to be able to deal with that and focus on the thing that you need to focus on, I think is really important. But where that penny dropped, I think, for all of us in that conversation, because we never really intended to go there, but where that penny dropped was we all struggle with these differing priorities all the time. And guys, I think, it's probably not anything to do with gender. I'm sure a lot of women feel the same thing too, maybe in a slightly different way, but guys tend to always sort of have this feeling of, I've got to put myself last because I've got to be in service, and whether that's in service to family or work, those things always seem to trump doing anything for yourself. Maybe that's a little bit of the resistance to meditate piece coming in there as well. With that, I should be doing something. I should be, working and spending this time on me is a little bit self-indulgent. But just the fact that we kind of got to the point where we're going, no, if I've got all these things, understand that it is important to me. They're all important to me. But be right there doing the thing you're doing at the moment and honour it and do the right thing, because you're not with the other ones. So don't. You're not there anyway, so don't undermine what you're doing at the moment because you're not doing the other things that you're not doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we also sort of went down the line, and where Josh and I had a really interesting sort of conversation was around the planning, because he does actually have a weekly golf plan that he can do for you, and we sort of and I've got an expanded version of that, of how I plan everything in my life, and I work in quarters. So every 3 months, I'll put together my quarterly plan, and then from there is when I do my weekly plan, and then each day I'll do my daily plan, and it's all broken into the different activities that I do, from spending time with the family to work to golf's in there, to my own personal care and strength and conditioning. So for me, that's getting it out of my head and into a structure and framework where I can, in whatever I'm doing, I can be there totally absorbed in what I'm doing, knowing that I've got time allocated elsewhere. And that to me has been the key. And I've done that for quite a long time. I've done that for about the last 15 years. I didn't do it prior to that. But that's been a game changer for me in my life, in being able to just get all the stuff in my head out, to be able to prioritize it into a framework that I use on a quarterly basis.
Definitely a good thing to do. Planning is always effective and is always helpful. Obviously, the methods of doing it differs for everybody, but so often we might do these things at work, but we just don't do them at home. And that's why sort of your performance as a professional in your job can be very different from the way that you present yourself in your private life. So and I also think one of the things that he mentioned is that you give so much to your professional life, whether it be a business, whether it be a job, whether it be to clients. Whoever it is, you give so much of yourself that you show up as the best version of yourself to people who, they're important, but they're not the most important people in your life. That's right.
Right, and the most important people in your life get the worst of you, and surely that should be the other way around.
Yeah, it's such a great light bulb to have to think about and go, actually, what? Yeah. Am I dividing my energies up in the right way, and should I be approaching it differently? And I think that conversation for us, which was a while ago now, it absolutely rang those bells, and it was timely. I know it was timely for Josh. He was, he needed that download,
he did.
And it's been good to see that things have continued to go well for him. So that was a pretty big moment, to be honest. That was probably the deepest depth that the Missing Links Golf Show has gone to in the 100 episodes, I would think.
I think the other part of it as well is, yes, it was deep, but it was also vulnerable as well. And, there was sort of a bit of a look into the sort of deepest, darkest parts of our soul and what was going on. So that was liberating in itself.
Yeah. And in fairness, it's probably the episode that we ended up getting the most, not feedback, but, kind of conversations
reaction
from people about people that we had never met. And it really made us, I think, for the first time, because this was back in episode 29 that we had this conversation. So it was 71 episodes ago now. But it was the first time, I think, that we really started to kind of wrap our heads around the fact that there's a bit of a community that's been building. And there's a lot of like-minded people. And I think, probably as a way to wrap these things up nicely at the end of the conversation, the biggest thing, the surprise, and I think the most rewarding thing personally has been that our little story that we started, 100 episodes ago, just because we thought we enjoy these conversations, maybe someone else will enjoy listening to them. I don't think that we had any idea about how much it would resonate with certain people at certain times. How similar the battles are and the journeys are, or the pilgrimages are that people are on. I've been fortunate enough to meet a few of the pilgrims as well over time, and I just hear about how much certain episodes have hit them at the right time and helped them out, and that to me, like that's the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and we have had, the Voice of the Pilgrims. There's been a few that have come back with those sorts of comments. I mean, we've had a couple of conversations with the Pilgrims, Mick Patterson, and g'day Mick. If I'm sure you're listening, he's got a couple of injuries at the moment, which I completely empathise with. So I hope to see you back playing golf soon, and also Joel Gregory. We had a conversation with back in episode 51, and he had a similar challenge, I guess, with his game. So it's been it's been a common theme, and something that I think has brought us together as a community, and we've been able to share those experiences, and it seems to have resonated with a number of people, which has been really satisfying.
It's very cool. So probably the biggest thing is thank you to everyone that listens, and if you've got this far, you're a bit over an hour into the show, thank you for sticking with it. Hopefully, again, there's been a few good reminders of some of the big moments that we've had over the last 100 episodes, but we plan to be here for another 100. Wow, that's a commitment. But I think, why not? We're going to have a chat every week anyway, so we may as well just record it.
I reckon by the time we do another 100, I'll be ready to be playing on the Australia-wide senior amateur tour.
You will be very close, age-wise.
I'll be, I'm not too far away from turning 5'3".
Wow.
So 2 more years.
Yeah.
And 55, and I qualify. I'm eligible. I'm senior enough to be playing in the Australian seniors events. So that's going to be very exciting.
That is exciting. I might need another 100 or 150 on top of that before I get there.
Yeah. You're a wee boy behind me.
Yeah, I know. It's good. But anyway, Pilgrims, thank you for everything. Thanks for listening. Thanks for getting involved. Thanks for joining the community. If you know anyone else that you think would enjoy this or benefit from it in any way, please share. Please feel free to, drop a review. Drop us a line. There's plenty of ways to get in contact. So we love to hear from you. We love to hear the various stories about what all of the listeners around the world are up to. So long may that continue. And with that, in mind, Andy Walker, have you got any final words of wisdom for the Pilgrims for the 100th?
Oh, look, I think after 100 episodes, we've been pretty consistent, I think, with the way that we've signed off each episode. We started sort of signing off in this way reasonably early in the journey, and I think for the next 100 episodes, we're not going to change what we do. So only one thing left to do, and that is rock out, Pilgrims.
Thanks for listening to us today. We love hearing from our Pilgrims, so please reach out to us through any of the links in the show notes. We know golf is hard, so we hope we can help you shoot better scores and inspire you to keep trying. Rock on, Pilgrims. G'day, Pilgrims. We're after the credits. Thanks for listening to our 100th episode. Here's a little surprise that not even Andy Walker knows about, but it's a little tune known as the House of the Missing Links. Strap yourselves in, Pilgrims. Here we go. Rock out, Pilgrims.